This is Life Rewired, the brain injury podcast for survivors by survivors. And now your host, Rob and Ashley. Hi, I'm Rob, and this is Life Rewired. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button so we can get this out to as many people as possible. And if you find this content enjoyable, please share it with someone that you think might be able to enjoy this. Also, don't forget to check out our new website, myliferewired.com. If you want to be a guest on our show, go there and hit the contact us button and just say, I'd like to be a guest on your show, and we'll get back with you. Today, joining us on the program, though, is Megan Hurley. Hello, Megan.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How about yourself?
I am very well, thank you. I really appreciate you inviting me on the show today.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you. We've tried to make this happen for a few months, but we're here.
I know, we finally made it. Everything finally aligned. I'm really excited to be here, though.
Yes, and I'm glad to have you because I know that you are an advocate just like myself. And I want to get all into that. But before we start that, let's just get a little background. How did you get your TBI?
Sure, thank you. It was in 2008, so almost 17 years ago. For those of you who are trying to do the math, that means I'm 46. I know, seeing some, how's that going? So 29 years old. I was a high school teacher, an English teacher. I went into the library while I was working on my master's degree, had a seizure, fell backwards, fractured my skull, started bleeding into my brain, resulting in a traumatic brain injury, which for everyone I hear, if you're not familiar, a traumatic brain injury, a TBI, is an impact to the skull that changes brain function. I don't remember anything from that point forward. My husband, Bob, and my friend who was with me that day have filled me in. But my girlfriend who was there called 911, called my husband, and a librarian called 911. In the ambulance, I was still seizing and slipping in and out of a coma. I was raced into the surgical ICU where the doctors were working on me. My husband got to the hospital about 1 minute after they took me in. So he had to wait in the waiting room for about 6 hours until he could finally see me.
Oh, wow.
At that point, I had been intubated and was in a medical coma because the seizing didn't stop.
Goodness.
Probably the worst part is my mom had just been visiting for 2 weeks from New York. I had driven her to the airport and then drove to the library.
Oh, wow.
So thank God I was not on the road when this happened,
Right.
and could have hurt somebody. But that meant that Bob had to call my mom. And when she got off the airplane, she had a message saying, I need you to call me. Something happened. She had to just turn right around and fly right back out here.
I can't imagine.
I know. She and Bob have told me it over the years, really filled in what I was not conscious for, and I just can't. Their strength just keeps me feeling so empowered.
So how long were you actually in a coma for a period of time?
It was, I believe, a few days, maybe 3 days. I was in the hospital for 9 days and then got transferred to another hospital and actually got discharged really too early because I came home and right away had to go back to the hospital. So I was back in for another day because I still needed more support and more care. I would say that would be the biggest hurdle of this journey, was the starting point, because back then in 2008, we weren't giving any information. I was brought in a wheelchair out to the hospital to get in the car, and they said, you have a traumatic brain injury, find a neurologist. That was it. There was no information. Nobody said, by the way, this is what that means. This is what a TBI is. This is what's next. I received no physical, occupational, or rehabilitative therapy after exactly.
Wow. Which
Yes,
you absolutely needed that you didn't get.
exactly. And I didn't realize what to what degree of a big deal that was at the time.
Hmm.
And I will tell you, I found it in the most unlikely of ways. However, it was a gift and propelled my journey forward. After being in the hospital for 10 days and then bedridden for 6 weeks when I got home, I had to start building up my body, my muscles, my stamina. And I hadn't yet been able to walk down the hall by myself.
Hmm.
Finally, I had that first day that I could get out of bed and walk down the hall. I kind of shuffled along the
Yeah.
hall.
Yeah.
My mom was staying out here. She flew out while I was in the hospital and then stayed with us for a few weeks. She didn't know what that sound was. She didn't know if I fell again, if I was having a seizure. So she came running out. I was standing there leaning against the wall
Mm.
saying, I'm walking by myself. And we celebrated that so much. And I started after that taking group exercise classes at the YMCA because we have a Y right next to us and I
Mm.
can't drive because I have a seizure disorder. So I was incredibly uncomfortable at the group exercise classes because I
Mm.
don't like everybody feeling like they're watching you and you have to do it right. And
Yeah.
the really not fun music and all of that stuff. And I couldn't do it right. So
Yeah.
one of the instructors came over to me in the middle of the class and said, "You're doing it wrong. You're going the wrong way." I looked at her and said, "I don't care. I'm trying to stand up."
Good for you. Good for
So I
you.
just kept going down the list of classes to take. The very last one I ended up with was Zumba,
Oh
which
yeah.
I didn't know what that was. I have never been a dancer. I took that class and it was so much fun and so invigorating. I had only the capacity to step side to side. Everybody else was doing, everything.
Oh yeah.
But I got smiles, high fives, hugs for that whole hour
I
for
love that.
being there for who I was and what I could do.
Yeah.
My first instructor is one of my closest friends. That first class, I finally felt like a person and not a patient.
Yeah.
And I have so much gratitude for that moment.
It makes a
And
difference when you feel that acceptance.
yes, and that inclusion.
Hmm.
And as a result, I became licensed as an instructor so that I can teach classes free of charge and get involved in fundraisers because I want to give back for what Zumba did for me, for being part of that community.
I love that. Is that how you transitioned into
Mhm.
your to being an advocate?
Yes, that was really where it started, was learning how much we have to be our own advocates because I don't know if you encounter this, but this is such an invisible disability
Hmm.
and being told you look normal.
Hmm.
I would never be able to tell there was anything wrong with you.
Yes.
Nobody is ever saying that ill intentioned. But the thing is, if you could see the scar tissue in my frontal lobe, I wouldn't have to explain it and essentially
Right.
prove it. Like we're in this
Yes. It's like
bizarre
you have to prove it constantly.
yeah, and we're working on getting stronger and rehabilitating and
Hmm.
getting our lives back together. And there's this added hurdle of prove that you
Hmm.
really have a disability, prove that a brain
Right.
injury is a disability, which is exhausting.
It's very exhausting. Our battery starts off so small anyway. And then you have to spend half your battery explaining yourself, and it just wears you out.
It does. It really does. And it's the other thing is, well, fine, I look normal, but that's because you're seeing me on a good TBI day. The bad TBI days, I am just not functioning.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing an interview. I'm not on social media. I'm not doing anything, which is why
Hmm.
it's that extra level of needing to prove, which
Right.
really I want people to hear that. Because if someone says to you, hey, they're sick, would you say, prove it? Give me your medical records. I'd like
Right.
to see prove it.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have a cast on your leg, would anyone doubt it? Would it
Right.
ever occur to you to say, hey, could you just take that off and run around? I want to see it for myself. I want to see you prove it. It's of course not.
Right.
But
Right.
that's what happens to us is, what do you mean your battery's empty? How did
Mm-hmm.
your battery get drained so fast? You look fine. And it's such an important point to
Yeah.
advocate for ourselves, for other survivors, for the caregivers and loved ones of survivors,
Oh, absolutely.
for a very big reason that I spend so much time trying to raise awareness, build community about brain injury and for brain injury survivors is because the doctors in the hospital when I was in the coma still, the degree of brain swelling was so high that the doctors told mom and my husband Bob that I most likely would have deficits, either severe mental deficits or paralysis. And by the grace of God, that I have so much gratitude that nothing was to that degree. But
Yeah.
that's why it's important for me to not be a silent survivor, because there are people who have lost their battles, who have lost their voices. And it's been 16 years of learning how to put those wires back together to I did not sound this intelligent then. And as you can see, I'm still stumbling over some words, but
Well, if you're
I
like me, by the end of the day, you don't sound that intelligent anyway.
oh no, no, no.
There's times my wife will say, your words make no sense. You need to go rest. I don't see
Exactly.
it. She does.
Oh my gosh, Bob sees it and
Mm-hmm.
I don't. And I am very grateful. My husband, my family, and my doctor, I have an incredible support system. I'm grateful. They all take the time to ask the questions you're asking, to hear what this is, what this life is, and how it can change all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, also, we have setbacks because we can't plan for another accident because
Right.
one fall tends to beget another fall and
Mm-hmm.
more falls. So it's a
Exactly.
recovery and building up process and then making sure we're taking that time to rest. It's like shaking a battery.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's all filled up, sometimes it's upside down. Sometimes we're just going to shock it a little bit and there's not really a constant and even a
Right.
horizon line,
Yeah.
whatever it's called.
Ours tends to look like one of those stock tickers that goes up
Yes,
and down. That's what recovery to me looks like.
it is. It absolutely is. And it's my husband does exactly the same thing. And some of my friends who I spend a lot of time with, they see the look you're talking about. They see when I get glazed over. And I will start to notice that I'm slowing down a little bit or maybe disconnecting a little bit too much, but they see it and they say, you're done. It's time to go to bed. You're done.
Yeah.
I see it. And it's been a lot of learning for all of us.
Eh,
It's a nonstop, and it's for one of the things for both of us is growing the support community.
right.
And that's how we connected. We were in a similar. There's some wonderful support groups
Oh,
all
yeah.
online, everywhere, but and also we found each other online.
I don't even
But
remember where we found each other, but I know we found
one of the
one of the
Facebook
groups.
support groups, yeah. But it's great that there are those of us who are trying. And I've been
Yeah.
doing this. You've been doing this a lot. You are such an active voice, and I admire you and everything that you're doing with
Thank you.
having these conversations so much. And I know it takes a long time to build that education, awareness, and
It
advocacy.
does. It really does. I was talking with the director of the Brain Injury Association of America just last week, and he is trying, it's going to be a long process, but he's trying to fix it to where when they discharge you from the hospital, they don't just say you have a TBI, go TBI,
Yeah,
you
go
know?
find a neurologist. Good
Right.
luck.
So they're trying to build a network, and since all the hospitals use different systems, it's going to take a while, but they're going to have information that prints out with your discharge papers that says this is what a TBI is. This is the things that you should be doing.
this is
Common
what
sense
it means.
stuff.
This is what
Yeah.
you need.
But with a brain injury, it's all a question mark. It's
Hmm.
every day is a question mark. You don't have, it's like, it's not like Groundhog's Day where every day is exactly the same.
No,
You
it
never know what the next day is going to
no,
hold for you.
absolutely. Every day I open my eyes and say, okay, well, let's see how this is gonna go.
I don't know if you're like me in the beginning. I mean, I spent the first 2 years in bed just feeling sorry for myself. And then I finally said, I have got to find a purpose. And once I found my purpose, my life changed.
I could not agree more with you because I was a teacher, and for me that was the most fulfilling, most important purpose, was to be teaching and empowering high school students to think analytically, creatively.
Yeah,
And then suddenly it's gone. And suddenly you wake up and say, well, what do I do today? But there are also days where you say, I can't do anything today. That balance is a tricky one.
it is.
I understand what you mean. I've spent a long time also finding trying to find my purpose, and that's from talking with a lot of survivors. I know that's something a lot of us struggle with,
Yeah,
because there's this sudden before and after that we don't have any transition in.
right.
uh, I would say, similarly to what you experienced, I finally found my voice. And at least for me, I feel that doing what I can with my voice, getting out there, filing all of my applications with TEDx all over the place, all of my applications with all of these organizations to be a speaker and to share my story and the lessons from it,
Mm,
especially to keep this conversation going,
yeah,
because brain injury needs to be talked about more. Is just, and to connect with someone like you is to have this conversation, to figure out a way finally to advocate, because I don't know about you, but for me, I tried a lot of different things that just failed. And that was even more.
it's very frustrating. Yeah.
It is, and that then feeling sorry for yourself for that
Mm-hmm.
too. I also think there is not. I don't. I want to say it's not that there's anything wrong with feeling sorry for yourself. I think it's understanding that self-compassion, that we don't have to judge ourselves.
Right. I spoke to I couldn't tell you who it was because it's been more than a day ago, but you understand what I mean.
The running joke is always, I remember my childhood, but I don't remember what I had for breakfast.
That-
It's
There's days I'll ask my wife what she wants for breakfast, and she'll say, "You cooked breakfast 2 hours ago, Rob." Oh, okay.
You cook breakfast? Oh, wow. Who are you talking to?
Yeah, I don't know who I was talking to, but it's hard on those days where you're beating yourself up. And they said, would you talk to your friend the way you talk to yourself? No. So when you get that, you just say, you're talking about my good friend Rob. He's a pretty good guy. He's doing the best he can.
Thank you for sharing that, because I have days still. It's every day is different, and I have a
Hmm.
lot of days where I'll say I'm not doing enough,
Yeah.
or I'll see that, wow, nobody responded to my application to be a speaker, so I'm not doing enough. I'm not good
Hmm.
enough. And it's a bad TBI day. It's a day where I am in pain and need to be letting myself rest
Hmm.
mentally and physically. And that's okay.
Hmm.
Because otherwise we push and push and push without recovering.
Right. It's like driving a car and never changing the oil. Eventually, the car's going to lock up.
Yeah, and that's taking care of the car. But you're right. We are very, very hard on ourselves. I think, at least for me, a big part of that is, again, feeling like I'm doing something useful, feeling like I'm doing something productive, with that other challenge layered in of, this is a real disability. That, yes, it's an invisible disability, but it is one. And we are living with it as best we can, which inspires other people and can hopefully grow support systems and grow the conversation.
You said something earlier about, what not to say, all that. We had done a program, oh gosh, probably almost a year ago now,
Mhm.
but it's been one of our highest watched programs, and we just called it, I think it's something like "Be careful what you say to a survivor" or something like that. But basically, the whole show was things you should not say to a survivor.
Mhm.
And when I had my book launch back in January, the publisher, she says, what do you want your bookmark? Because she made bookmarks for the book launch. And I said, on the very back of it, I want a list of things not to say to a survivor, because they're all the things that people say that they think are
You
encouraging.
should be better by now. It's been a year. Aren't you
Hmm.
feeling better? Well, I lose things too. I forget things too. You look
Oh, the
normal. I
forget
could
things
never tell.
too
I
one.
know what you're going through.
Uh huh. Oh, I want to scream when I hear that. I forget things too. Oh my goodness.
No, because the difference, and it, I believe me, I get it. It's there is that frustration, but also it's people are not trying to be hurtful or ill-willed.
Right.
That's why we can take those chances as learning moments
Hmm.
to
That's what's
say,
so
because
important to educate. It's just so important. I took
absolutely.
I took questions at my book launch, and somebody said something about, "Well, you look great," and I took that opportunity to say, I said, if you had a car that was in pristine condition, but the engine was blown on it, it looks great, but it doesn't run.
Mhm.
That's the difference.
Exactly.
That was their aha moment.
And people, they're trying to be supportive and complimentary. It's just different. And
Hmm.
believe me, before my accident, I would never have known what this is, or also I wouldn't have
Right.
known the right things to say versus things that are not as ideal to say. So there's no blame or anything like that. But it
Hmm.
is taking the opportunity for learning moments. And that's when I can say, I can understand what you mean. For you, you don't remember where you put your keys. For me, the memory didn't form
Right.
of where I put my keys, and that's the synapse that's broken.
Hmm. Or you don't remember what you did last week, and you'll never remember what you did last week.
Right. Because that the memories, they just our brain doesn't work that way.
Right. The long term memory, that's perfect.
Yes, I know.
I can
And
take you to the
thank God,
restaurant.
I'm grateful. I
Yeah.
remember my wedding. I thank God. And yes, I don't really care if I don't remember what I had for breakfast, but I don't take it for granted.
Right.
And I don't take other people's short-term memories for granted.
Right. It gives you a really good sense of empathy.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I hear that in your voice and with your questions and in this discussion so much. I think, to be honest, a big part of my empathy grows and develops, and it's not ever to say that anything good really nothing good comes out of this disability.
Right.
My mindfulness has been heightened
Hmm.
because I live through understanding the patience that other people need, whether it's from a brain injury or from something else. It's
Hmm.
I am more I'm aware of the patience that we need, and
Yeah.
that it takes longer for us to communicate and process,
Oh, yeah.
which not everybody is okay with. And I don't know your situation, but a lot of survivors, friends or family, walk away over
Oh,
time. It's a different battery. It's not even it's not like one battery that drained. It's a different battery
yeah.
altogether, and it's learning, which has made me more mindful and try to be more empathetic for others who I see communicating any other way, thinking they need a little more patience, they need a little more time for understanding. And I am incredibly grateful. I'm grateful for my family and for my husband and for my friends. My big journey has been my doctors, though, and really learning to advocate for ourselves.
Yeah,
And
you have to.
that's a place where using our voices strongly really makes a difference and really matters.
Sadly, a lot of doctors are still under the old school where you're at 2 years out, that's as good as it gets. That's not the case.
I will tell you, and again, the hospital said go find a neurologist. I went to my first neurologist for 2 years and made no progress.
Mm,
No progress with the seizures, no progress with the cognition. And Bob came to and still does to every appointment that I have. And that doctor one day said, I haven't seen you have a seizure. I think you are faking to get your husband's attention. You're like the boy who cried wolf. You're the girl who cried seizure. There is nothing neurologically wrong with you. I stood up and said, that kid got eaten. The boy who cried wolf. That didn't work out so well for him.
hmm
Give me my file. What form do I sign to say send my file home? Clearly, I am not making an appointment with you because there's nothing neurologically wrong with me,
Right. Why
according
would
to you.
you?
Why am I coming back?
hmm
I read my file page by page, and the brain injury was not mentioned once,
Wow.
which is when I learned look for a TBI specialist neurologist
hmm
because every brain injury is different, but
Right.
every case, whether it's seizures, whatever it is, doesn't always mean it's a brain injury.
hmm
And I needed to speak up and tell my story from the beginning and tell that story that you might not see a seizure. That does not mean that the 60 people who were with me when I had one 2 days ago and had to get rushed to the ER, it didn't
Yeah.
happen. I wasn't doing it to fake it for all of them.
Wow. That's scary. It's so scary that these people are practicing.
And it's also really it's tough because we're not supposed to, but we're supposed to be respectful of everybody.
hmm
But also, I growing up, it was you trusted what your doctor said was the
Right.
answer. So you're not supposed to question them because we're not the experts.
Right.
However, we know our bodies. Each of us are the only ones living with this invisible
Right.
disability. They can't see it. And we are allowed to advocate for ourselves and say, wait a minute, something is
hmm
wrong. It's my body. I know something is wrong.
And your
And
spouse is
polite,
with you all the time. They see it.
yes. And it's okay to politely ask questions
hmm
and to politely say, this is not what I'm experiencing. This is what I'm experiencing.
Right.
Or to say, this medication is not helping. Can we try something else? When it becomes a discussion where, yes, you and your spouse, your partner, whoever is with you, when your doctor is part of that, then you're a team. And this should be a team effort where you're part of it too.
Yeah, you're not supposed to just be sitting in the corner and be told what you're going to do.
No, and we can't pay attention well enough to. So
Right.
if they did it that way, I sure wouldn't be able to keep track of it.
I mean, if I'm having a bad day on my, because my wife goes to our appointments too, I might not even know why we're going or or what we're doing.
Well, one of the big reasons that is most helpful that Bob comes to my meetings is because that way on the car ride home, he can call my mom and tell her what the doctor said. Because my mom always wants to know how did the appointment go, what's the progress, etc. And I don't really keep track very well. And I have trouble taking notes on it. And then I
Oh
have,
yeah.
arrows going everywhere. So Bob is the one who is such a rock of support to me in so many ways. And he comes to my hospital visits, he comes to the blood test, and when I have to have the blood test, he won't look, which is fine, but he's there. And then right away, he calls my mom and says, here's what happened. Here's the plan. Here's the progress. And I will tell you, my mom is just such strength. I can't imagine how she had to fly right back and come here and then see me in a coma when she got here. And she has been 1,000% learning and advocating and educating alongside me and with my husband, and
That's great.
the incredible doctors who I have, and the incredible friends that are part of my life who I'm grateful for, and
Mm.
people like you who give me the chance to use my voice.
Yeah, that's what I'm about.
And
That's
all the people who hopefully are reading my TEDx applications and my other applications to please invite me to be a speaker so I can share all of this information. It's the purpose that I found. I know one of the places that's been incredible for me has been the San Diego Brain Injury Foundation. And it's just complete compassion, generosity, and support for survivors. And they were there for me when I was first starting, and I've been with them. I've stayed on with them to volunteer to
love that.
help with people who are new to their journey. Because if we can find ways to thrive, then we can support other people and lift them up.
So if anybody wants to book you for an event, what's the best way to connect with you?
Sure. The best way is either by my email. I'm not sure if there's like a chat or whatever that you're posting, but it is hurleym423@gmail.com. I am also on Facebook. I do not know the handle off the top of my head, but
We'll
my
get that and
Instagram.
put a link down below.
Thank you. Yeah, Instagram. There's a few links for some other things I've done, but honestly, through my email is going to be the most direct way, because that's what I've learned. I've had a lot of help. I certainly was not this articulate years ago and after a few other major accidents. But I'll tell you that Toastmasters International, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. I
Mm-mm.
wasn't, but I learned about them. Toastmasters is a worldwide nonprofit organization that's dedicated to service, leadership, growing communication skills, getting more confident in communication and leadership skills. And that's where I had a group
Okay.
of supportive people who heard me say, this is what I'm going through. I need to relearn putting my thoughts into words, into sentences
Hmm.
with a clear message. So I
Yeah.
volunteer with them. I've been part of them. Finding resources gets easier when we keep this discussion going.
Right. On my website, I have a page dedicated to just resources.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I find a resource, I throw it up there because there's things that I mean, gosh, I'm almost to my 5 year mark, and
Congratulations.
thank you. I call it my brain anniversary.
Yes, that's what I know. It is.
Do
It's
you
our
call
brain
it too?
anniversary.
That's
I
funny.
insist on presents. That's a good reason my husband buys me a present. I want a present for my brain anniversary.
Hey, I never thought about asking for presents.
Ask
That's
for
an
a present.
idea.
There you go. Now I got to text you and make sure I tell you ask for presents.
That's funny. But yeah, I'm still learning things that I did not know existed
Hmm.
that, you know, I wish I had known. So
Exactly.
anytime I find that, I immediately go throw it up on my website. And
Well, I
if you ever want to build a website, um, I know somebody that could probably help you with that.
thank you. We definitely are going to have a lot to catch up on for how to support each other and then make that paving way to support other people, because I mean we connected. It's just I really am grateful for that and for
Yeah.
I ordered your book. It didn't arrive yet, but I ordered
Oh, okay.
your book. I was able through help to publish my memoir a few years back about the journey, but not just for brain injury survivors, really just for anyone who believes to believe that hope is possible
Yeah.
when we can't find it.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and that was a big challenge, learning experience, and exciting adventure in a way of trying to put my thoughts back
So,
together.
what is the name of your memoir?
It is called Hope Survives: Strength After a Traumatic Brain Injury.
Awesome.
And it's on Amazon. All of the proceeds go directly to the San Diego Brain Injury Foundation, because I want to keep doing something to give back
I love
for
that.
places who support other survivors, especially to support caregivers and the loved ones of survivors, because as much as
Yes.
we tell our stories, it's so important that the caregivers and loved ones know that they aren't alone and there's support for them too. Somebody asked me what I would do if I won the lottery. I said that we would pay off the house. But really, the next thing I would do is I would create a venue for brain injury events. Because I will tell you, I have tried so hard to have events, to make fundraisers or events or anything to support people with brain injury, to help with the awareness events
Mm.
for families and their brain injury. But I will tell you, booking a space is impossible. Booking a space that has parking.
Yes.
Booking a space with parking. I even will say, like, I will give you a tax receipt, and the answer is no, we don't do that. And I think a big part of the
Hmm.
reason is there's not enough education about brain injury and the need
Right.
for what bringing people together can do.
You know, and this is going to drive the point home big
Mm-hmm.
time because somebody once said to me, well, it, I don't have a brain injury, so it really doesn't matter. And I said, your house isn't on fire, but aren't you prepared if you have a fire? Don't you educate yourself to know what to do in case of a fire? That's why
Do you have a
education is
fire
so
extinguisher?
important. If you have a brain injury, it's nice to have the tools already in place to say, this is what we're going to do.
And people, it's hard. And it's not a blame thing because I never knew anything about this. I didn't know that
I
a brain
didn't
injury was
either.
a thing. But
You know
then
what I
I
thought a brain injury
learned,
was? I thought you hit your head, you forget who you was for a week, and then you remember again.
right, it's not a disability.
Yeah.
And then the more that I learned, the more prevalent you realize there's over 5 million Americans who are
Hmm.
affected by brain injury. And that's according to the CDC and the NIH,
Right.
not Megan.
Right. Every
But
9 seconds,
every
another
nine
one.
seconds. Oh my gosh, you're reading my mind. I was just gonna literally, that's a big one. Does everybody hear that? Every 9 seconds,
Hmm.
someone in the United States is affected by a brain injury from the CDC and the NIH. That's the
Right.
current statistic. I will tell you back in 2018, it was every 23 seconds. It's now every 9 seconds.
Hmm.
The reason that we are clearly driving that point home is because you can't prepare for this.
Right.
I was in a library and
Yeah.
suddenly I have a brain injury. This
Right.
happens, and there are things to watch out for. We are beyond the point of assumptions, we're beyond the point of stereotypes. If a kid gets hit in the head in gym class with a ball, pay attention to that,
Hmm.
because you do not have to have a bleeding injury to have a brain injury.
Right.
Any time you have that impact with your skull, go to the hospital, get a CAT scan. Do not drive yourself.
Mm.
This is so important. A closed head injury is an injury. So important. Get that CAT scan. If you hit your head, get checked out because
Hmm.
you can't see it. And it's so crucial to find out, get the education, get the resources on concussion protocol. Know, be prepared. Get the resources you need. Go get that fire extinguisher.
Right. How many people are in an auto accident? They don't go to the hospital because they say, well, I didn't hit my head. You don't have to hit your head. That whiplash,
Yep.
your brain is going back and forth. It's hitting your skull.
Yeah.
It can cause an injury. You don't have to hit your head.
And another statistic that people aren't aware of as commonly, the number one cause for brain injuries, for traumatic brain injuries, falls.
Hmm.
Number two, car accidents. Because people often ask me, well, it's got to be sports. That's what causes brain injuries. If I don't play a sport, I'm really not affected by it. Sports, number 3 on the list.
You can slip it
And
in the tub.
yeah, and it's anything. And that's why it's not that we're trying to instill fear. It's
Right.
not that we're trying, again, to be saying our people are insensitive. We're trying to do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
We're trying to bring this discussion forward because every time that I have a discussion or I speak someplace, there's always somebody who comes up to me, and this is why both of us do this, is for the person who says, I didn't know it was okay to talk about this.
Yeah.
I thought I was the only one. I'm the sole caregiver for my mom or dad, and we don't know where to ask for or where to find help. We didn't know it was okay to ask about this because nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important that we have these open discussions. We welcome these discussions because this should be a comfort space. These are okay things to talk about. And you also don't know what people are going through because it's also okay to not be ready or comfortable to talk about
Mm-hmm.
your brain injury. Everybody's on their own timeline with
Oh,
their
yeah.
recovery, and you never want to push someone to
Right.
say, well, you have a brain injury, you need to be out there using your voice. We're all on our own journeys. It's just that really nobody is alone, and not everybody. Yeah, I had somebody say to me once, you're the first person I've met who has a brain injury. And
Yeah.
I said, no. Especially this person specializes in mental health. And I said, no, I'm the first person who has told you I have a brain injury. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's all about wanting to make sure people know that it's okay to talk about if they want to.
A lot of people don't want to talk about it because they're afraid of judgment. They're afraid they won't be able they'll lose their job. I did talk to a person one time that was afraid they would lose their job.
Because I get it. I get it. People have asked me, why are you okay talking about it? And I again say because I needed to hear this.
Mm-hmm.
And there it's that up and down. There's a lot of aspects of this that I do not feel confident about, that I do not share
Yeah.
publicly. And there are also in certain in volunteer organizations that I'm part of, I walk that line of, I don't know, am I going to wake up and have a bad TBI day and need to cancel on something I was, offered to volunteer for? Are they going to like slight me?
Yeah.
Or do I show up and be in horrible pain and try to power through it? And it's again, it's that we work so hard to fake being okay.
Yeah. It's like putting a mask on every day.
We're kind of our own worst enemies in that sense because
Mm-hmm.
we're advocating for brain injury acceptance and awareness, but to have it happen like minute to minute in our own lives, there are risks or ramifications that we worry about, to say, here's the truth, I need you to hear me, because it can be so draining, but
Yeah.
also we don't want to face repercussions at work, face repercussions in things that we are trying to be part of. We don't want to be looked at as less than, because we're
Mm-hmm.
not less than.
Right. We're still capable. It might take us longer, but we can do the job.
And also, just because we can't do things the way we used to, that
Mm-hmm.
does not take away from the value of
Right.
what we do now. It's just a
Right.
different way.
Mm-hmm. Well, you
And
said that right.
that's what we do, and that's what we say, and that's why it's so important to talk about these things
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully empower other people.
That you took
Also
the words
help
out of my mouth.
to also helps, I knew you were thinking it.
Yeah.
But also help to maybe give a little bit of insight for compassion to people
Mm-hmm.
who are learning to work with survivors, who are trying to understand how they can support us, because people do ask, how can I support you, what do you need?
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's, if you're with me in the moment, that's the best way that I can show you what I need, because it's not the same thing every time, or maybe it's a
Right.
situation that I didn't anticipate.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. There's a very many different versions of Rob. You never know what you're going to get. It's like, what's that commercial? You never know what you're going to get.
I know, I can't think. I
I
know.
can't think of it. Someone's going to put it in the comments.
I know. Somebody put that in the comments. Somebody Google that. Otherwise, we just had a copyright infringement issue.
But yeah, that's basically it. Every day you do not know what version of yourself you're going to bring, but you just try to bring the best version you can.
That's it. You bring the best version that you can
Mm-hmm.
on that day. And very honestly, for that hour. And when you and I were planning today, both of us scheduled to make sure we had time to take a nap
Yep.
before getting online together because we wanted to be able to bring 100% of ourselves. And I don't know about you, but it's been 5 years, you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, and there still is that learning curve of how do I adapt through my day
Yeah.
to bring that best version
Mm-hmm.
and that version where I feel confident enough. I know for me, it's the way that my husband has taught me because we've learned together, and I always want to do more.
Mm.
But what is it, Bob? What's the rule? One thing a day. Either one interview, one session, or out to lunch. Not both. One meeting or take the dog out for playtime. Not both. I want to do all of it so that I feel like enough. So I feel like I'm doing enough. So that I feel like I don't disappoint anybody. All of that. And the answer is one thing a day. And I have learned celebrate that one thing. That one thing is something to celebrate. It's a win.
Yeah.
And I am going to go to sleep for the rest of the day, but it's a win to be here now. And that's how I have to balance my days is there's an event on Thursday I want to go to. I need to rest all day
Mm-hmm.
until leaving for that event, but I get to go
Yeah.
to it. Even if I can only be there for 20 minutes, I celebrate that 20 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And I've had to learn that I accept I got to do that. If people there want me to be there for the whole like 5 hours or whatever, and they're upset I left, I can celebrate that it was a win for the amount of time that I was there.
Old version of me could probably do the 5 hours, but the new version, no.
No.
I might be able to do a few minutes. I might be able to do an hour, but who knows?
Right, exactly.
And I don't know if you're
And
like
either way,
me,
it's
but
okay.
right. I don't know if you're like me, but like my wife, she will actually say to where if we're at an event, she'll say, "We really need to go." Rob's not saying it, but he's done. So she
Yeah,
advocates for me whenever she can see that.
and it's a wonderful thing to have people in your life who do that
Yeah.
and who take that time to learn together. Because I will say, my husband, he hope up even when I can't. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for him for that.
You have a good man.
Thank you. And you have a very good wife, it sounds like.
Oh, she is the best. She'll say, "Oh, I'm just your wife," but she's an angel.
I have the same conversation. I just thank him for everything, and he says, "What are you thanking me for? I'm your husband."
Because some husbands wouldn't understand.
Yeah, and it's hard because I know survivors who it's hard to hear that part of their story.
It is.
That their spouse, their partner, their mom, their son, their daughter just can't help. I don't want to say I was more of a handful back then because I think I'm watching Bob laugh that I'm not less of a handful. But when I did first get out of the hospital and then after some very serious subsequent falls and hospital stays and seizures that are always a setback, that needing to it feels like needing to start over a lot.
Yeah.
And he's been there through all of it. I'm grateful. And the people in my life are just incredible. And the people that I've met through other support networks who have these conversations, I'm grateful for all of them for the chance to have these discussions and learn and hear more about what all of us go through. And I think what anybody who's facing a challenge or faces a challenge of any sort, not just for brain injury survivors, because one of the things I keep saying one of the things I've learned,
You sound
but
just like me.
I know. It's one of the things I learned. Again, it's very often people say to me, "Oh, brain injury, that's your cause." I can see your face. No, it's not. It's not
That's when
my
you want to
cause.
go.
Mhm. It's not my cause. It's a lot more people than you think.
There's people walking around with brain injuries that have no idea they have a brain injury.
And that don't have anybody who will empower them and
Right.
believe in them and who they don't have to prove it to.
Hmm.
And that's what we are here for.
Yeah, I've often wondered sometimes if some of these doctors that diagnose people with like bipolar disease or whatever, or I don't know if it's a disease, but bipolar, are they bipolar? Do they have a brain injury? Are they
I think the
walking around
most
like that?
as much as patients as we can advocate and say, well, here, I need to tell you my story, I need to tell you what happened, I think that's the way to get that support for ourselves, or to do what I know our spouses do, is go to the appointment with the person, so that way,
Hmm.
even if the patient isn't able to articulate or everything, especially as the person who's with them all the time, and say, this is what I've observed, this is where she struggles, this is where she excels. It's having, again, as creating that team
Hmm.
to find the right doctor for you.
For example, we went to the doctor, I think it was yesterday, um, had an appointment, and I was having a really bad day. And my wife walks up to the window, and she could tell the communication was not there between the two of us. And I was getting really strange looks from the nurse. And she says, he's got a brain injury, so I'll help. So had she not been there, they probably would have thought, well, this guy's drunk.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even drink.
A lot of us have, and my gosh, this is not meant to be like a whatever, but I know through a lot of the online support groups,
Mhm.
I saw the thing to get the brain injury
Oh,
card.
yeah.
It's, and I'm not showing it because it has my phone number and my husband's phone number, so that's why. It says brain injury identification card. You keep it with you, and it says a brain injury identification card. I have a brain injury which may affect my behavior and ability to communicate. Then it has my name, my emergency contact name and phone number. And the back is a whole list of symptoms that says symptoms may include poor coordination, balance, muscle control, blurred speech or vision, impaired hearing, difficulty with attention, concentration, memory or understanding, difficult controlling anger and aggressive behavior, confusion, disorientation, dizziness, difficulty processing, seizures, headaches, fatigue. So these are things that mimic behavior of being under an influence
Hmm.
or being aggressive, not without that intention. It's because of
Right.
having a brain injury. And that's, I have this with me all the time, because when we can't explain, because when we are having a rough time, we can't say, wait, let me stop and educate you about, we're having a rough time.
Right. So, like when they ask you for your insurance card and you hand them your license, it's good to say, wait a minute, I'm not impaired.
I will say though, if as a little, I don't know, I don't want to say public service announcement, but learning point, I don't know for other people, for me with the seizure disorder as part of this, I'm on a number of medications to treat that. And it's hard to, if I have an accident or something and 911 or the ambulance has to come and get me, I can't tell you all the medications I'm on. So I printed out a list of my medications and I have it taped to the back of my insurance card.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So this way, if I'm unconscious, and somebody is looking at my wallet, my insurance card is right behind my ID, and the
Hmm.
medications with my husband's phone number and the insurance information, it's all printed out that I tape. to my insurance card.
Mm-hmm. That's a good idea. One idea that I have not actually implemented myself,
Mm-hmm.
but there's an app that you can get, and you make the screensaver on your phone. It lists all kinds of information, your brain injuries information right
Oh
there.
my gosh.
I mean,
That's a
it's
great idea.
yeah. I'll find out
I mean,
what
I
the
have a
app was
picture of my
called.
puppy, so that's kind of like,
Oh,
but I think that he will understand
yeah,
replacing
but
him with
I mean, you don't want to lose your background,
no, but honestly, that's the kind
but
of
it's a
thing that can
really good
save your
idea,
life.
though. Yeah.
I know I changed in my contacts, not changed, but for my husband, I added ice in case of emergency.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my mother-in-law, ice 2. So this way, if somebody picks up my phone, or especially paramedics, that is a common thing, is to search
Yeah.
for ice for in case of emergency, not just for brain injury, but for any, that's to be able to find a contact. And that's why I did that. I wear my medical bracelet, which I really planned that I would have here to show you, but it's in the other room. But I have my medical bracelet that has my name, it has Bob's name, his phone number, and then on the back it says TBI, seizure, and then it says my birthday, allergic to penicillin, and on meds, because that's something that I've learned through the years for research and through my doctors is first responders, no matter what, the first thing they do is look for some type of either a device or a
Yeah.
piece of uh, alert information. And that's why my watch has that fall detection.
Oh, yeah. I love that
Because
feature.
yeah, between either a seizure or a vertigo episode, it says we've noticed that you fell, or it looks like you fell. Dismiss this message, or within 5 seconds, we contact emergency services. And thank God that technology has
Right.
enabled these things for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had to hit dismiss quite a bit.
I dropped mine one day and dismissed, but it's so important. And I love that my doctors have been engaged in these conversations, and that Bob and I have done this research to learn how can I be independent and safe at the same time. Because this is always changing. Our injuries are always evolving as things are changing. So we want to find ways to not only be our best advocates, but still, again, be thriving as much as possible.
I know I can say this for my wife. It's caused her to be more. I don't want to say overprotective because she's really not overprotective, but she'll say, "Watch your head."
Bob
Anything
does
we're
that
doing,
too. And it's so loving and compassionate.
it
And
is
it gives that extra layer of, I know it's not just me looking out for me.
right. Yeah, because they didn't love you. They would just send you out to the. Here's you a hammer. Don't go fall.
Run with scissors, we used to, no one thought of that stuff. And now it's that heightened empathy and
Mm-hmm.
mindfulness, like we were talking about earlier.
Right.
And again, just it's to have those days that are the hard days where people don't see us, where we don't look okay, to
Right.
have those days. Those are recovery days. Those
Mm-hmm.
are still wins. Those are still days to celebrate.
Mm-hmm. Oh, completely.
They may not look like it or feel like it or sound like it, but those are the days that we are actually finally learning to listen to
Mm-hmm.
what our brains are telling us.
It's hard. It's a hard dance to say, okay, I have to chill.
It's our new normal. I remember asking my doctor, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks after I got home, when do I go back? When do I get my life back? When do I go back to my life? And he said, you don't.
Mm,
That life does not exist anymore. That's an
yeah.
old normal and it's gone. You have a new normal, and that's what this is now. And you learn how to thrive in it because things are different now.
Right.
And everybody's has a different old normal, but the big challenge for me is I remember my old normal. I remember being a teacher. I remember being a counselor, and
Oh yeah.
I wish I could still do that. I can't anymore. And I understand that that's not a me saying that's a limit I have. That's a reality. I don't
Yeah.
have that ability anymore, but I can still see that old me. And it's really an acceptance. It's a grieving.
It
It's a
is.
grieving of our old selves and our
Oh
old
yeah, you're
normal.
definitely mourning the person
Hmm.
that you lost.
Yeah. Which is another thing that's hard to explain.
You kind of have to go through it to really understand it, but some people get it, but they don't fully get it. They understand the concept.
Yeah. And that's okay because at least, it's people are
Hmm.
listening and people are supporting you. And I can't walk in the shoes of someone struggling with something I've never understood.
Right,
And I can't expect that people are going to understand what we go through. I think the most important thing is to hear us.
right. Validation.
Yeah, to
That's
hear
all we
us.
need. Hmm.
Yeah. And I think that I feel like I've talked a lot about the things that people don't do enough. And I really want to make sure I talk about the things that people do and that there are people who listen.
Hmm.
And even if it's me talking and I'm not even really making sense, I'm kind of disconnected, but it's just being present. And I'm grateful for the people who do that. And I'm incredibly grateful for people in my life who ask, what can I do? Like
Hmm.
right now? Am I pushing you too far right now? So there is like the general, hey, what do you need? Which isn't as helpful as, what do you need right now?
Makes a
And
difference.
help me understand why this is a challenge. I know both of us have people, have our pets, have everybody, it is being grateful for that. And I know one of the things that I try to be incredibly conscious of is always thanking people.
Yeah.
One of the things that I still do, I'm guilty of it, but I used to do more, was apologize. I would always apologize and I would say, I'm sorry that I am need some extra help, need some extra time. I'm sorry that I need to ask for a ride because I can't drive. Everybody's brain injury is different, but for me, having the seizures
Right.
adds the layer of not being able to drive.
Hmm.
So for me, that's an extra barrier, and either am not able to come to something or I end up needing a ride because when someone says just take an Uber, just take a cab, it's not just because that it gets expensive.
Right.
But it also that minimizes our loss of independence.
It does.
Not to anybody's fault, but I apologize a lot. I have amazing people in my life who go out of their way with their generosity of themselves to pick me up, to adjust their schedules so that I can be present at things. And I always say, thank you, I'm sorry. They say, stop saying you're sorry. And I had a good friend I have a good friend who did point out, you say you're sorry and it's annoying and stop doing it. He's right. And I learned from another survivor a good thing to say is thank you for your patience. Because
Oh,
I think that's really what we mean.
yeah. I think you're
Because then
right.
you don't want to take away from I'm sorry, because really taking accountability and being sorry for something is a separate action and
Hmm.
separate, different sense of accountability that is important in and of itself.
Yeah, saying sorry is like saying I was wrong. You weren't really wrong, so
But the things that when people are wrong and people say I'm sorry, heartfelt, we don't want to be taking away from that. So I've learned to say thank you for your patience.
that's a good way to look at it.
Appreciate when people can offer that kind of thing because they see that I am struggling with trying to communicate or whatever it is. And again, we find people in our lives who, I don't know if you struggle with that. We feel guilty of
Oh, all the
asking
time.
asking for that help.
Hmm.
It's just a gift. And then, hope, again, with what we do with all of the volunteering, because we want to be giving back. If it's not specifically to somebody who can help us get somewhere or whatever, it's still trying to give back because people are supporting us.
Well, you get to the point where you feel lonely, and you don't want other people to feel the same way you felt. If
Right.
you're to me, if you're a decent human being, you want other people to do better than you. And yeah, there's bad days ahead of you, but there's also brighter days ahead too. So,
Hmm.
let's not talk about the bad days. Let's talk about the good days. Let's talk about what if. What if today's a great day? Well,
Hmm.
let's do something great. If it's a
Exactly.
bad day, I'll just lay back and chill.
And we get through that.
Yeah. And here,
I've watched so many Netflix series.
I have two.
Cuddling with Shadow, cuddling with my dog.
And if you're like me, you can rewatch them all over again. It's a whole
Because
new
you forget what
series.
happened.
I've come to. There's been times I've said, "Oh, I want to watch this," and my wife will be, "Well, we watched that."
It has a
Well,
great big surprise ending,
guess
but we
what?
don't remember, so it's okay.
Guess what? I'm gonna watch it again. It's a new show for me. It's all about your attitude and how your outlook on life. And
Mhm.
yeah, we may have been dealt a bad card, but just because you've been dealt a bad card doesn't mean you have to use that card. Yeah.
That's incredibly well said.
I have very much enjoyed this conversation today.
As have I. Thank you so much. It's really great to be able to have a candid conversation.
Yeah, and I would like to have you back sometime if you have another topic that we'd like to talk about. Let's do it.
I would love that. I would love that. I think we absolutely have some specific topics we can hone in on. If people write in the comments if they have anything in particular they want to
Yeah.
hear us talk about or watch us try to talk about.
Yeah, let's definitely make it happen.
I think that would be fantastic. And I'm so honored that you invited me. We were able to do this today,
Yeah,
truly.
I'm glad you came. So don't forget, go to My Life Rewired. If you want to be a guest on the show, you can click that link. But also, if you have questions, comments, things you'd like to see more of, things you'd like to see less of, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is, just email us and we'll make
Engage.
it happen. Right. This is your podcast. This is not all about Rob or Megan or Ashley or Ted or anybody else. This is for you. This is why we do this.
I'm grateful that you do this, that you're pioneering this, and that you are. I know this has been a big dream of yours,
Yeah.
and to have this come into fruition, I really congratulate you.
Thank you. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
So that's all we have for this week. So we will have Megan back at a later time. So
Yeah.
we'll see you guys next week.